Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Advising and Career Services Department, thank you again for being here today. We are excited to host this employer panel in collaboration with our industry specialist team and employer partners, creating meaningful opportunities to students to connect directly with industry professionals. This event is a part of Future Frame campaign at Humber Polytechnic, an initiative built on collaboration between departments, industry, and students to support your career journey from day one. You don't have to wait until graduation to start building your network and gaining industry insight. These opportunities are here for you now. To guide us through today's discussion, I'm pleased to introduce Jamie, our moderator. Jamie is a media communication student at Humber Polytechnic with a strong academic foundation in child and youth care and human resource management. He currently works as a program assistant with the Black Student Success and Engagement Department and serve as a senior peer mentor with first-year experience, supporting student engagement through equity-focused program. With experience in the nonprofit and community mental health sectors, Jamie brings a thoughtful, inclusive, and student-centered perspective to today's conversations. So I'll welcome Jamie to introduce our industry specialists like employers from different industries. Thank you, Jamie.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to From Campus to Career, Employer Expectations for New Graduates Career Panel. My name is Everton Jamie Kane, pronouns he, him. So we are thrilled to have an incredible group of panelists joining us for our event today who bring a wealth of experience from industry. So I'll be introducing our panelists now. Daniela Vekik brings over a decade of experience in talent acquisition across the tech and health tech industries with leadership roles at IBM, health tech consultants offering valuable insight into recruitment trends and building strong, diverse teams. Graham Sogawa, principal of InvestMatch and former executive director at the Ted Rogers School of Management, works at the intersection of education, workforce development, and industry, helping students and organizations build meaningful connections. Shari Wadi Ali, a talent acquisition manager at Changemakers, has nearly a decade worth of recruitment experience across organizations such as RBC, LinkedIn, and Prodigy Education, and is passionate about inclusive, people-centered hiring strategies. David Blair, operations manager at DHL Supply Chain, brings extensive experience in logistics and team leadership and is a strong advocate for transferable skills and non-linear career paths. Wow. Raymond Davidson, director of supply chain operations at Loblaws Company Limited, leads strategic logistics and initiatives within one of Canada's largest retail supply networks, driving efficiency and innovation nationwide. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. We're looking forward to today's wonderful conversation and all the learnings that we're going to obtain. Can I get a round of applause, please? So just a quick note that there will be time after our panel for a Q&A. So please hold on to your questions, make notes of them on your notepads or your phones or whatever devices you're using. So our first question will be, what skills or competencies do you prioritize while hiring new graduates, including those graduates from Humber College?
Sure. So the question was around skills that I guess my organization or I myself prioritize for recent grads. And I think certainly each role is going to have certain skill sets and different competencies that we look for. But when I'm interviewing and meeting with early talent, I think across the board, what oftentimes will stand out is not as much what you studied, but how you studied it how passionate you are about what you learned in the classroom, and how you're taking steps to potentially build on that knowledge. I'll give you an example from my most recent hire. Was a Humber grad from your advertising program. And what really impressed us about this individual were all the technologies that she was playing with outside of curriculum, outside of her schooling, to better her skill sets, how she was asking us questions about which technologies we would be open to using to further our brand and further our reach. So overall, again, I think what will really stand out is, are you passionate about what you've been studying? Are you further interested in learning more about that topic?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Shari. I'm from Changemakers, and I take care of all the hiring at Changemakers as well with our internship program. And a couple key things that I look for that allows employees or students to stand out is, most importantly, having an awesome portfolio, checking your ego at the door, and really having engaging conversations in these interviews. Another example I actually can share with one of our recent students, they're a public relations intern that we just hired today. They were all about, I know the experiences that I can bring to the table. They had the certifications, they had the public relations internship programs that they've done in the past, but it was their passion, and it was the way that they spoke so highly about the experiences they had in the past, and most importantly, how they wanted to impact our company. It was about, what can I do in order to make sure that your company shines, almost like a brand ambassador. So that definitely caught my attention, and as well our team. Another piece that really shone from us was her portfolio. She had an extremely incredible portfolio showcasing her expertise within her writing, and as well was open to learning about more technology such as AI and how it could really benefit her portfolio. And with these key pieces, that was really what pushed her to the good to the great, which allowed us to bring her on board. So that's a small example of what I'm looking for from our students, and how they could really showcase excellence in order for us to bring them on teams like Changemakers.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that. So what I'm hearing is brand ambassadorship and being able to check oneself, not just going in with your skill set, and we know you've graduated college or university, whatever your credential or your program is, but being able to have a stronger understanding as to what it is you bring to the table is going to be do you really well with success post your educational time here at Humber College and beyond. Thank you so much. Can I get one more, please?
Hi, my name's Ray Davidson. I'm the Director of Operations for Loblaws. I want to share a little personal story with you first before I answer the question. 37 years ago, I was sitting in the chair that you're sitting in today. So I was taking business and supply chain logistics in Moncton, New Brunswick. I applied for a summer job working in a warehouse at Loblaws, and I enjoyed it so much I stayed. So where you're at today and where you can be, there's no limit to where you can be. So 35 years I spent in Moncton, working in the warehouse, working my way up through. My last 5 years I was Director of Operations for Quebec and Atlantic Canada. And right now we're building a brand new automated facility in Newmarket, 1.2 million square feet, that will do about 150 million cases a year. And that's why I moved to Ontario. So it's been 37 years to get from where you're at to here. What's important to me is the technical skills. You have to look at an interview process. This is your opportunity to sell yourself. Everybody can come with the same portfolio, but it's how you sell the portfolio. Talk specifics. Get into examples of how you can be the most important person for that company. But you can teach people technical skills. The other side that's important to our business is the people side of it, that you have to do as well. You have to put yourself ahead of other people and explain why you're the best candidate for that position. Don't be generic, get specific, talk about yourself. It's the opportunity to sell yourself and the skills that you're going to learn here at the college and the skills that you have in the past. Be specific to you, not generic.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm hearing there's a balance between our soft skills and our hard skills, and the importance from knowing yourself and what you bring to that table exactly, being able to market oneself effectively, and differentiate yourself from the competition in these various spaces, regardless of what sector you're in? We're going to move on to the second question. Everybody's going to get an opportunity to speak. So thank you for the responses so far. So for question number 2, how should students prepare for an in-person interview? I'm going to spin that a little bit. Maybe the first interview was a virtual interview, and now you're inviting them in for an online interview. Now you're inviting them in for an in-person interview, What does that look like?
Good afternoon, everybody. Dave, working for DHL, an international company. So question being, how do you prepare for an in-person interview? I'm going to repeat kind of what Ray's saying too. It's focused on what you can bring to an employer. It's not just about your brand and how great you are, but also how well that greatness fits in with the need of the employer that you're going to. And that takes doing some research. That takes asking some questions. That takes confidence. If you're not confident, speak in a mirror. You can close the door in the bathroom, be by yourself, and get comfortable. One thing that I look for, I've done thousands, tens of thousands of interviews through my career, is be genuine. Don't try and be somebody that you're not, because that gets found out very quickly. For people that I've interviewed for a long time, we have a great meter that we can kind of tell as to what's legitimate, what's real, and what's put on. We're not always 100% right, but you've got to remember that employer is the one that's interpreting what you're doing. So come in prepared, be confident, know the role that you're applying for, and more importantly, what can you bring to that employer to make them better?
Thank you, Dave.
Hi, everyone. So, first of all, I'm Daniela, and I'm currently in a career transition myself. I'm navigating the job search. I'm working on some materials and webinars as it relates to job search guide using AI. Had a webinar last night, and I want to address one thing before I get to answer this question, which is I was late today. And the reason why I was late today is because I had this webinar. I had a very important meeting this morning in Scarborough as it relates to filming of some courses, and I underestimated how long it will take me to get here. And what I wanted to address is sometimes you can be late to an interview. And actually, I was late today. It is important to be authentic and explain what the reason for that is. Because of course, being on time is super important. It actually showcases your ability to be representable. It showcases your values. It showcases how responsible you are. So if you have a valid reason in terms of why something like that happened, address it immediately, explain, apologize, and of course, just be authentic, right? So that's number one, and I definitely wanted to address in terms of me being late today. So it kind of went hand in hand. But I agree with my colleague in terms of everything else. You need to come in, you need to be prepared, you need to understand who you're interviewing for. You need to have read certain parts from the website and learn a little bit about the culture, learn a little bit about the values of the company, and then throughout any part of the interview process, adhere and try to include, what your values are that are a match with that company. I think that will resonate really, really well, in addition to, of course, so many other things, including communication and just building good rapport and answering questions properly. So.
Thank you, Daniela. That was fantastic. Can I take one more, possibly?
So I'll touch on, when you're in an interview, it's so important to make sure you answer the questions correctly. So one key thing I touch on with all of my students and employees is the STAR method, and it's situation, task, action, and result. And this is one of the most structured ways of answering questions. When a person asks, or interviewer asks you, tell me about yourself, walk me through your career journey, this is an opportunity for really showcase those key bits, those highlights, those accomplishments. But when you get more situational or behavioral type questions, it's important to use this type of STAR method in order for us to understand what is the situation you dealt with, the task you dealt with, how did you action it, what was the result? Because a couple things that will teach us as employers one, you're able to really wrap up a conversation very quickly. You answer a question very quickly. You're able to communicate the information very effectively, and we understand the accomplishments, even if it wasn't an accomplishment, even if it was a challenge that you learned from, that teaches us how that you're able to overcome this situation based on how you phrase your responses. So STAR, use that. I find that to be so beneficial because it's lasting for a lot of employers that ask these questions, so we can understand how you to communicate for now and in the future.
I'm going to move on to the third question in the interest of our time, but I'm hearing a lot of things about STAR method, the importance of being authentic, that authenticity with ourselves. Even speaking in the mirror, I do that every morning, believe it or not. That's the only way I can get through my day. So I appreciate all the responses that we're getting from our panelists. In the interest of time, our third question is, what can students do to stand out in interviews? What are the most common mistakes that you see throughout your career that students make, and how can students avoid those mistakes or avoid making those mistakes? What does that look like?
That's a really good question, and I think there's two sides of it: how to stand out versus what are some of the more common mistakes. I think when it comes to standing out, I always, and I'm going to talk about the entire recruitment process, not necessarily just an interview. I always think back to early in my career. I was in a sales role, and I was not very good at it, and I was sent to a sales training course, and the coach told me that sales is about being incrementally better than your competition consistently. Just be a little bit better than your competition throughout the process. And make no mistake, when you're applying for a role, you are selling yourself, and that's an uncomfortable place to be. So my advice to you is to look at that approach of how can I be just a little bit better consistently across the recruitment process. That might mean answering your phone when we call. It's a common challenge for recruiters right now that we don't like to pick up our phones. Responding to emails quickly, being attentive, taking those little steps could mean the difference between the candidate who gets the interview and the candidate who's overlooked. When it comes to mistakes, having run a large co-op program, I think every year I told myself I've seen every mistake possible an early talent individual can make in the recruitment process. My best piece of advice for you on that front is the interview begins the moment you step foot on the worksite location. I had a student who lost out on an opportunity because before the interview they sat at a Starbucks and called one of their good friends and talked about how they weren't really interested in this role, but this would be great interview practice. Well, it turns out the hiring manager was in line grabbing their Starbucks, overheard that entire exchange, and certainly that made for a very short interview. So again, I think it's about looking for ways to stand out is across the process, and I think when it comes to mistakes, it's be mindful that your interview starts not when you step into the interview room, but the moment you're on site with the employer.
Fantastic. So that means that our students really need to get into position before they even speak to somebody. Once you step foot onto that site, it's ready, set, hut, and go, like football would say, right? So please, can we get one more?
Sure, and I like the stories, like some of the colleagues I try to share and keep some brevity here that it's good. I was hiring for a manager for one of the sites that I was looking after, and as I'm heading there, I'm driving in the GTA, not too far from here, and got into a bit of a road rage incident with somebody who didn't like the way I was driving. I saw some lovely hand gestures, some great colorful language, and lo and behold, who comes to the interview but Mr. BMW? So I want you to kind of put that into check, that you're always kind of being watched, whether you think you are or not. And try and keep things simple for you. Common mistakes that I see, and we don't want to focus on the mistakes. There's a lot of successes here. But answer the question that's asked. If you're in an interview and you don't understand the question, we're all patient people, ask. And if you're confused about that answer, literally take a breath. As an interviewer and people are gathering their thoughts and come out with an answer, I am much more apt to listen as opposed to, I lead by example and I do all these great things and I've done this and I volunteer here, I'm checked out. That's what I'm talking about, being confident and prepared in yourself, is those simple things of just, what is the question? How am I going to answer that? How am I going to verbalize that? Take the time. Okay?
No, that was great. Can we get one last response, please? Thank you, Danielle.
Sure. I love everything that my colleagues already addressed. I think they're so important. In terms of standing out, you do need to understand the value of articulation, and it comes in line with pausing, right? And I'm just going to reinforce exactly what was said, but like in a bit of a different way, which is, when you take the time to pause and reflect, the other person will actually then be more interested to hear what you're going to say because they saw that you took the time to reflect and think about that question, as opposed to just, rambling. That always comes off differently and it comes off more thoughtful. So I, again, will reinforce authenticity, meaning, you might not have the ideal answer, and that's okay. I think what's going to make you stand out is if you articulate your thought process. And this is really what you're being evaluated on by the interviewer in terms of how you problem solve, how you think, and how you kind of come out to the solution. Are you collaborative? Are you a team player? Are you curious? Right? So these are the things really that you're being actually evaluated on as opposed to having that perfect answer. So that kind of makes it easier in terms of preparing for something and not worrying, oh my God, I don't have enough experience.
Thank you, Daniela.
It will resonate much more. It's going to start building a relationship with that person. And then, of course, if that person gave you any type of advice in terms of do this, this, and this, even more impactful would be, oh, thank you so much for that advice. I actually looked into it. I found this article, wanted to share with you. Or, I took an action, blah, blah, blah. You explained what the action was. And this is, thanks to you. And I'll follow up with you once I have some type of result. And if you do that, it just, it's very impressive, actually. It's not something that's done often, but it shows that you took the advice of that person. Everyone likes to be the person with the good advice, right? And when you kind of give feedback to the person that gave that advice to you and that it worked for you, you really, really made them feel good. You actually are building a relationship. And then you can start, that person is going to start seeing your mindset, how you think, and potentially even offer something in terms of, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? But then, naturally with time, you're able to even discuss job opportunities, which I would suggest to wait a little bit instead of just immediately, unless the person actually told you that they have some type of opening at the event, right? So those are just a few tips.
Definitely. I'm hearing a lot about relationship building. Sometimes you don't necessarily land that opportunity right on the spot by meeting X individual with X individual. Sometimes it's a matter of building that rapport, establishing it, sustaining it, and then you never know. It could be a week, a month, a year later. I've had opportunities like that as well. So thank you. That was excellent advice. Could I get maybe 2 more, please?
I mean, Danielle's kind of hit on it. It's back to what we've been talking about. How do you come across? How do you sell your brand? How are you being memorable? One tip is just make sure it's directed in the right spot, right? So, I mean, I'm here on behalf of DHL, which is an international corporation. Can I get you a job in Singapore? I cannot. I can do a lot of things, but I can't do that. So it's just knowing who you're talking with. The power of LinkedIn and social media for you guys, the tools are much more available, but if you're authentic, you're timely, you're poignant kind of with your questions, you've got to remember the people in business that you're going to be employed with, you've got a business to run. As employees, as Ray said, employees are what make our businesses go around, and we're both integrated with AI and automation, but the foundation becomes people and processes and how we do that. That's our focus, right? So is it, well, so-and-so's not answering. Dave, I put a message to Dave and he hasn't responded to me. Doesn't mean I don't like you. Doesn't mean it's a personal attack. We've got priorities to do. But if you are persistent, you're respectful, and you found a way to sell your brand that's going to solve a solution here, and you have that persistence and that professionalism so young, it's going to make a difference. I don't know if that's helpful.
Oh, thank you so much. I think it's really important that we also establish what are those shared priorities. Do we have any, right? In terms of our identity within the company or the future company, that's also really important to consider as well. What does that longevity look like? Not only for you as being the employee or future potential employee, but also on the side for the employer, because they're investing in each one of you. Can I get one more response, please?
To add to what my colleagues have said, not only using LinkedIn as a tool to network and reach out and build those relationships, but also see who else is in the company that you'd love to network and connect with as well. For example, if I'm not able to respond as an employer at Changemakers, connecting with another colleague of mine that is hiring for roles, or at least just building out that relationship with them if they're a part of, let's say, the data team or the IT team. And being bold enough to say, hey, I'd love to schedule like a 15-minute call with you, not to talk about myself, but to learn more about your role, right? We don't want it to be proposed exclusively to, I need a job. Yes, we know you want to be employed, but you want to change it into a space where you want to learn more about them and their career path and how they got to where they are, and asking those questions as to, based on my experiences, what tools do I need in order to get to where you are, or even take it to the next level? And I guarantee that they will give you that feedback in order to help navigate your career.
No, thank you so much. That feedback loop is also really important. Engaging in that critical reflection is really important because that's the only way that we grow. Moving on to our final question, for the panelists, at least directly from our amazing team, is, as an employer, what are the key attributes that signal long-term potential for a new graduate job seeker? What advice could you provide to strengthen positive job search outcomes, especially in this current market where a lot of things have changed post-COVID?
I think I'll choose to focus on the second half of that question. And my best advice for anybody that's right now moving through their education and looking ahead towards their careers is, as best you can, maintain a positive, attitude about your search. Don't listen to the media about how the economy's not good. Companies are shaped like pyramids, and when the economy slows, typically the roles that get impacted are those at the top. I have, throughout my career, survived many economic downturns, and the demand for early talent has always remained strong. That being said, this job search coming out of your education will be the most challenging job search you ever face. You will apply to more roles and receive less interviews at this stage, mainly because of the structure of the system. Think about where you are right now. Well, you're moving through an academic program which has defined dates of graduation and when you are in school and when you're not. So as a result, the talent tends to clump together and be in groups. So you're going to start looking for work along many of the folks in this room with you. So it can feel very, very discouraging when you're applying for roles and not hearing back. This will be the most challenging job search, but it will get easier every time you change roles from that point onwards. And I know it's difficult to sometimes keep your motivation level up and remain positive. Watching my own kids applying for summer internships has been that experience. But again, just remember, employers want you. You are known as being the most technically savvy, the most creative generation. We are looking for that creativity. We are looking for that unique perspective. I know it can feel hard to get the attention of the employer, but I promise you that it's worth the effort, and it sometimes just requires you to hang out with those friends that are great at keeping your motivation level up, keeping your mindset strong.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Can I get two more response? Oh, actually, we might have time for everybody to respond a little bit on that piece, please. We'll just pass it down, keep it going. Do you want to go?
All right. So, I mean, Graham, you just said that so well. I mean, that positive piece and belief in yourself, that translates into how you communicate with others, right? As you're, I think you said it really well. This is the hardest hurdle to do, to get that first job and those first steps in the career. It gets easier from there. But persistence, say to a lot of people, persistence is key. You can't, as I said earlier, you can't buy that. You can't technologically, artificially engineer your first job in order to get that. It's not legit. It's those sort of things. But take on those experiences. Say yes. It's all those things that we've done here and how you portray yourself. It's almost as simple, do your actions match your words? Like it's all those sort of behavior pieces. When you're in a role, if I say I'm going to do something, do you do it? Or do you come up with an excuse why you can't do it? And if that's for an employer, that speaks longevity to me. And I talk from like an operations manager or supervisor role, which has always been kind of my forte. I will tell you, I say to every leader, you are going to make mistakes. There is no such thing as perfection. It's how you execute and how you own those mistakes and what you do with that learning that is super important. So there's persistence again, right? So, I can't speak enough that I feel like a bit of a broken record. If you're really prepared and you're really energized about a job and you've prepared and you're taking those steps to calm yourself and answer the question that's asked, and be a little bit persistent, there are certain keys you can do. I think our panelists and colleagues here have given you some kind of great advice, but the biggest thing is persistent. Don't give up. I mean, Grant, you mentioned it. I've come from a different generation. Ray and I are not that far apart. Social media can be damaging. If that's what you're sucked into, that's what you believe. Take a minute to take a breath and kind of, what's reality showing me out here? No, I am a good person. I do volunteer work. My grades are good. I'm involved in schools. I'm going to events. Find those positive pieces.
Thank you.
I have to just build on that because I totally agree with your conversation. If you look at my signature on my email, I have a little saying. It's called "Attitude is a choice." And it is a choice. It doesn't matter how bad your day is. It's how you deal with the situation. So there's two things you need in order to do a task. You need intention and you need mechanism. That's the two things that you need. I'm going to ask the audience a question, and you can just blurt it out. How much intention do you need, and how much mechanism do you need in order to complete a task?
I would give my intention an 80% because, if you have intention, you would find the mechanics to get the job done.
Okay, so 80% intention, 20% mechanism. Okay, anybody else?
I'll definitely give like 60 to intention and 40 to mechanism because I think intention is very important for what we are doing, but we also need to know how to do it correctly so that we are making sure that the things are done efficiently and effectively, but we also need to make sure we have positive intention to complete the task.
Okay, are you open to do a little role play with me?
Sure.
Okay. If I offered you $10 million right now, to leave, if let's say you had a phone call, you won $10 million and you got to go, and I said you can't leave, you're committed to this, you need to stay, but you're going to lose that $10 million by staying. What are you going to do?
I'll definitely stay because I think it's very important for me to get the job done from where I started and who offered me the job to work with the company instead of going for 10 million.
No, I'm talking just this meeting. Yeah. You're going to stay in this meeting and not go for the $10 million?
Yes, definitely. I'll stay in the meeting because if I learn from this meeting, I can make $10 million afterwards.
Well, you're ruining my role play.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Dave. Dave's older. He's like me, okay? Dave, you got a phone call. You got to go collect $10 million. What do you do?
I want to go. I want that 10 million.
You get outside, your tires are flat. What are you going to do?
I can buy your tires for 10 million.
So my point of the exercise is intention's 100%. So it's about attitude, it's about positivity. If there's a way that you want to get to somewhere and do something, it's all about intention. He's finding the method in what he has to do. It may not be the perfect method. All I did was throw roadblocks at him, but he didn't give up. He worked around the roadblocks and found a different way to get there. And I'll be honest, I don't think you'd stay for 10 million. I think you're going to go. Let's be honest, okay? So, yeah, it's just, if you want it, do it, have the attitude, have positive. Always be positive. Don't be negative.
No, thank you. I think we had one more student who had a comment. No, I just wanted the money. Oh, you wanted the money. I'll tell you what, if you split it with me. Sorry, everybody here is students. My bad, but I'll take half of that 10 million, okay? Great. Could we get one more? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That is so good and memorable. Everyone will remember that one. It just actually shows to say that when there's a will, there's a way. And I think we've all at certain points in our life, depending on what it is, somehow showcase that. And when you're able to translate that and bring that to your work, that will take you far. So I love that. In terms of just adding to that conversation, I think there were such strong points, it's really hard to add to this one. But I want to just maybe spin it in a little bit of a different way, and that is when you're interviewing, oftentimes we're in the mindset of, everybody when they're interviewing, they're thinking, I need to impress, but you also need to assess the employer. You need to be also evaluating, is this the type of organization I want to work for? Because you're dedicating a huge chunk of time and that huge will, right, that we just spoke about, which takes a lot of energy, a lot of your time, a lot of your attention. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes you can get a role and work with people that somehow you're not meshing with and it's not a fit, and you got the job, but it can take a lot out of you, and it can hinder you in your process, in your building years early, especially in early career. It's a little bit harder to get out of because you don't have other experience to fall back on and other to reference other things. So you might think, oh my God, I'm a failure. I'm not doing well. You start questioning yourself. So it's really, really important to when you're interviewing, that you're assessing the employer, the person you're going to work for. Do you like the values this person brings? Do you feel like you can learn from this person? When I was in IBM, I would get these questions. Oh my God, I have a few different roles I've applied for, and I got offers for all of them, and I don't know how to choose. And I would say, okay, you applied, the company you want to work for and the title, but are you considering the manager? Have you considered who you're going to learn from the most? That actually becomes more important. And every time I would say that, the person goes, oh, I know exactly which one I'm going to take. And so don't dismiss the manager, who you're going to learn from. It's super important.
I do have one more piece, and that's you're well read, well said. If you have an awesome manager, chances are your manager ends up becoming your mentor to really guide you with your path, because they will help charter the career path for you, even if you don't stay in the company for long, but they usually will help charter the path. One key thing I wanted to touch on is when you are applying for jobs, read the job description. And it seems so simple, but I've seen a plethora of resumes that have come into roles for, let's say, data analytics roles, and the individual is within the arts, they're creative. The roles don't align, and I know that you are looking for your next opportunity. But take a beat, read the job description, and align yourself if it fits. Now, there might be 10 points that you may not fulfill all 10. It might be just 3 that you'll be able to fulfill. Have the confidence and still apply. But most importantly, making sure that the role that you do apply for is in alignment to the role, the experiences you have and the career path that you want to take. But most importantly, be confident in your applications. And if you know who the recruiter is or the talent manager or who's connected to the role, reach out. Say, hey, my name is Shari. I applied for the position. This is why I applied. I did some research about the company. Really interested to have a coffee chat with you, or really interested for you to see my portfolio. Looking forward to getting some feedback with you. So taking that extra step really it makes you look a lot more shinier for individuals like myself.
I agree with what everybody has said. There's one thing that I would like to add to this conversation that is a very frustration for me during an interview process. Now, keep in mind, I've been working for Loblaws longer than most of the audience has been born, so I'm a little bit of an old school thinker. COVID changed the way that we hire and the way we do things in business today, but one thing I can tell you about logistics and supply chain is the best work is done with the people, and it's done being hands-on. One of the biggest takeaways for me in an interview process is when you've had a great interview and the interview ends with people asking the question, how many sick days do I have and how many days can I work from home? So you've taken a great interview and you've destroyed it because you ended it on a negative note. Build your confidence, build on the positivity. Those are things that you can work with your employer as you go through the process and get hired and get on board. But when an employer hears you're more concerned about how much time I have off, it doesn't drive your portfolio. Because it doesn't matter what you have for skills. It's about your intention. It's about your attitude. Attitude is a choice. And if you want to succeed, you will succeed. And the more you succeed, the more those things will come, and you will earn the time off and things that you need. But don't ruin it in the interview process.
No, thank you. So what I'm collecting from our panelists today is the importance of authenticity, preparedness, incorporating pieces of inclusiveness, and the ability to pivot to changes are all really important elements to consider as you go throughout this process. For a follow-up question, what is one piece of advice you would give students preparing to enter the workforce? Consider two things: folks who are entering the workforce for the first time, and folks who are also re-entering the workforce.
I look at that, and I kind of also, because I'm doing a pivot myself, so I'm going to answer that in the second part of the question. But for new grads, as you're entering the workforce, I do think that you should focus on value, providing value. How can you provide value to the future employer? How can you make your manager's life easier? Ask questions, ask thoughtful questions, ask, really understand what it takes to stand out on the team immediately, and be the one to say yes to almost everything. I think that if you come in with that type of mindset, that's a growth mindset. You're really going to stand out, because all of a sudden you're going to accumulate a lot more. You're going to accumulate a lot more skills, a lot more knowledge than the peer that started off that did not do all of those things. And you might have the same amount of experience after 1 year, but really your knowledge is going to be so much further along, as opposed to the person that wasn't curious, wasn't putting their hand up for all the extra projects, for problem solving, for leading, for all the uncomfortable things that come along when you have a job and things don't go the way that they're supposed to. So I really think it's about the mindset and just saying yes to a whole bunch of things that will eventually lead you and position you in a position where you're going to be the naturally go-to person for your manager for anything, right? For a project, for a lead, for a promotion, you name it, you automatically differentiate yourself doing that. Second part to this is, as you pivot in your career, so I'm going to take this back to myself. I, at one point, was in Croatia. I've been moving back and forth, and I finished school here, went back to Croatia. I had I finished university there. I was a real estate agent, came back to Canada, and, in terms of pivoting, I was under the impression that I'm just going to get my license and I'm going to then start working in Canada as a real estate agent. But actually, I was open to doing new things. I was open to trying new things. And I somehow fell in line with talent acquisition in IT. I got the job by fluke. I always say the industry chose me. It wasn't the other way around. And I ended up loving it so much and staying. So what I would advise in terms of re-entering the workforce, you might have some idea in terms of what you want to do, and there might be a reason why you're going back to school to educate yourself, which is always a good idea, by the way. Regardless if you're pausing your career to do that or not. But as you get back and you have an idea of what you would like to do, the more open-minded you are in terms of where that can lead to, I feel like your chances are going to increase, because you're going to meet someone. That someone is going to somehow open a door for this area and that area. So, it can take you down a path that you never even thought of or dreamed of, but it might turn out really, really good.
Thank you, Daniela. How do you provide value? What makes you different? What makes you unique? Just a couple notes that I'm taking from what you're saying. Also considering what an asset-focused versus a deficit-focused mindset. How do you demonstrate that? Do you believe in that? What does that look like? So thank you for your commentary. Can I get one more, please?
One key piece I tell a lot of my students, interns, co-ops, and alumni is, in order for you to get the door open for you, is to make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to par. I find that LinkedIn profiles is essentially your social media resume. And many times we can take a look at a resume and it looks very similar to the next person. For example, I just hired a public relations intern, my second public relations intern for 2026 summer today. We received 800 resumes. And the key piece that stood out for a lot of these individuals that got to the second portion of the interview was a powerful LinkedIn. What did that look like? That looked like their job description, their roles were all clear. Their pictures were there. They had a very decent or well-written summary. They also had their network, so their link to all of their work that they've done, their portfolio link. They also had recommendations, individuals that recommend their page or write recommendations to them. Another piece in LinkedIn I highly recommend that opens doors is network. There are tons of individuals that are on LinkedIn that want to open doors for you. So for example, if you're in IT and you want to get into IBM, reach out to the talent acquisition specialist, just reach out to individuals within HR, individuals in the development team. Ask for 15-minute coffee chats. One thing that is key, if they're interested, they will have those virtual coffee chats. Pitch yourself. Tell them why you're looking for a role and how would it be profitable for them, the impact that you can bring. So using LinkedIn as your tool will open so many doors for you. I've had individuals that have knocked on my doors day in and day out. They're always emailing me. They're asking how I'm doing. And then an opportunity did show up at my door, and I said, well, this person has been knocking on my door. They have been persistent. Let's get them an interview. And because of their confidence, because of their drive, they were able to get an interview, and they showcased that in our company, and now they're hired here at Changemakers. So those are the key things I would say, especially in this economy. Really make sure that you put yourself first and put yourself out there. And I guarantee you'll get accomplishments.
Thank you so much for all of that from all the panelists. I'm going to keep on moving with that. I mean, LinkedIn, I know sometimes we underestimate the power of LinkedIn. I think over the past 8 or 9 years, I would say upwards of 90% of the opportunities I've had, including speaking engagements and hosting and whatnot, came from LinkedIn. And the same advice you're giving our students today is the same advice I was given about 8, 9 years ago. So it does work. Please, please, please take note as you're going along. For a follow-up question, when students reach the end of an interview and are invited to bring forward their questions, what do you recommend that they ask? I know one thing for sure, do not leave that interview with no questions. But anybody, can we perhaps start from this side this time?
Certainly, I absolutely agree. Never leave without asking questions. It sends a signal of disinterest. And there's many, many great questions you can ask to get a better understanding of the culture of the company, the role itself, the structure of the team. I'll give you a trick that if you find yourself in this horrible situation where throughout the interview, all of those questions that you prepared have been answered. I know my worst interview moment was that exact scenario. The interview was a great conversation, but when we reached the end, they had answered all my questions, and it wasn't an impressive finish to that conversation. The trick I'd recommend using is, as you navigate the interview, there's likely going to be 1 or 2 questions that stand out in your mind as, oh, I wonder why they asked that, or why is that particular skill set important? So what you can do is turn that question back to them. For example, if they asked about a particular technology, you could ask, how are you using that technology? How are you using Salesforce, for example, in your team? What stood out to me when we recently hired an individual out of Quebec, we had asked a question about experience working in the public sector. And this individual right away turned it back to us and asked, does InvestMatch have interest in pursuing business with the government of Quebec or government agencies? What a great question. It opened the door to a further conversation, creates that dialogue. But that is a great trick that if you do find yourself in that situation where you have no questions left and you're wondering what to say.
No, thank you. I'm taking notes as you're speaking as well as each of you are speaking. For my own interview searches, asking about what the company culture is like. How do I fit within that culture? You should also be doing some of that self-reflective work. To add to what you're saying, what aptitudes or competencies does a successful candidate demonstrate? What does success look like in the role within 3, 6, or 12 months? Right? Those are indirect ways, little fine-tuned ways to get some, offerings from the interviewer and some insight as to what that position entails. Can I get one more, please?
One of the things I would recommend is often in a company the size of Loblaws, when we're going through the interview process, our talent team will often find people that may not be suited for the role they're applying for, but there are different roles within our organization. So my partner back here in the corner, Lisa, she's hired 500 colleagues for me in the last year, and we did a job fair yesterday for 40 people. And we've identified people through that program that are suited for more roles like a supervisor role versus an analytical role in the warehouse. I would suggest go in with a plan around what is your next 6 to 12 months, 3 to 5 years, 10 years, where do you see yourself wanting to be? And it's okay to ask the employer, what are the opportunities for advancement? I don't want the bottom role job. I want to grow with your company. How far can I go? What can I be? Rob Weeb, our COO of Loblaws on the supply chain side, has been with the business 42 years. Similar to my story, started off in Vancouver picking orders in the warehouse and now runs a multi-billion-dollar company. So we have great stories like that. My boss is the VP of Canada, was a janitor for me back in New Brunswick 35 years ago, right? So be prepared to ask about, so the company gets a feel of, you're not here for 6 months. You want to make a career. This just isn't a job to you. So have a vision around where you see yourself more than just the next 30 days.
Thank you so much. I'm thinking about a concept called ikage. It's a Japanese concept of purpose and passion and where you fit within society, and combining all these different aptitudes, these different domains to kind of help guide our, as you said a moment ago, our vision when we're navigating the workforce and moving from job to career mindset. So thank you so much for that. Can I get one last more and we'll keep on moving forward?
So the power of saying yes, especially as entering a job market towards in your field, you're much more prone to find more opportunity. If you're going into an interview of, well, I don't want to be a case selector, I want to be the manager, I want to do what Ray does in 5 years, you can't buy that experience. You have to go through that step. There's old adages, right? There is no elevator to success. You got to take every stair. All those little cliches. So as much as you've got that plan, don't be afraid to say yes. And you don't have to live there forever. You're trying to give an impression to an employer that you're there to help solve their problem for them. It's bringing value to that employer. That's your role, is going out there. They don't owe you anything. An employer, if you're coming in saying, I want this and I want that and I want to know how much time I have off, next. I'll be flat out honest. But being vested and having a genuine capability to be able to experience, I say to a lot of supervisors and managers, and this may sound a bit redundant, understanding and agreement, that may sound like the same thing. I'm going to challenge you to say that it is not the same thing. Your role here, as I see it, is to understand first, then be able to agree. We can understand things that we don't necessarily agree with. Is that bad? It's not bad. Are you forced to agree with what you understand? No, you're not. But if you're going in with that mindset of I want to experience and I want to understand, you are much more marketable.
No, thank you so much. So as we continue, I'm listening and I'm also reflecting. Believe it or not, I'm doing a lot of things all at one time. Just putting on, half of the job is looking the part, so no stress, no nothing. But how can our students and our potential future grads here follow up effectively after a networking event or a series of networking events? What does that look like for, from your perspective, the employer side, please?
So obviously, it's encouraged to go to a lot of events, as many as you can, and meet the people, talk to the people. That's where you get the understanding. In terms of follow-up, of course, you need to ask for their contact information, connect with them on LinkedIn on the spot immediately, because you're going to just get a whole bunch of names and you're not going to remember. So first of all, connect immediately. And the suggestion is, and recommendation, connect in 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours. If you really wait for a week or 2 weeks, it's already almost a missed opportunity. The chances of you getting a reply are very low. But if you do it within 24 to 48 hours and you actually acknowledge something specific that you spoke about with that person.
No, thank you so much. I'm like I said, I'm taking notes throughout this entire activity, if you haven't realized. And just wanted to wrap up that last question. Thank you for all that feedback. Those were nothing but gems that you had dropped. Confidence is contagious, and you can catch it from a mile away when somebody is. This concept of stick-to-itness, it's not a real word, but we use it in community practice. Just starting something and sticking to it is what I'm hearing a lot of. The entry level is the hardest part of the journey, so this might be the most difficult part of your journey within the workforce. This thing I call lesson versus a blessing. A lesson versus a blessing. Sometimes we're blessed to get that role that we applied for that we really wanted really, really, really bad. I wanted to be that creative content manager. That's a blessing. But there's also a lesson behind not getting that opportunity, that the time in which you had hoped to receive it. So it's one or the other. You're always walking away with something, is what I'm taking from some of the feedback I'm getting from our panelists. Attitude is a choice. I'm going to put that at the bottom of my email too. I really like that comment right there, because that's the only thing that you're really, truly in control of. Alignment, that fitness for not just the employer, but also for you as the potential employee. Is it a good fit for my values and who I am as a person? Is it aligned with my future career aspirations and goals? Just things to consider. Seeking out intentional mentorship. I've been at Humber College for some time now, and I've been blessed. I've really been blessed to being able to find some folks in different capacities who've volunteered themselves to provide mentorship. And let's not forget the last piece here is read that job description and making sure you know what you're actually applying for. That's overlooked many times, I've noticed, even when I've been in the employer's shoes and trying to interview for different roles in mental health or in community. It's just, did you read a job description? Because it sounds like you applied to a whole different position. So being intentional in your search is really important. I want to say thank you to our panelists for responding to these well-crafted questions. That was fantastic. Can I get a round of applause for our panelists? So now we're going to hop right into the next phase of our panel. We're going to flip that mirror, as we were talking about earlier on, and flip it right back onto all of y'all. So I'm hoping to get maybe 3 to 6 questions. I'm that guy who puts you on the spot. Everybody was so well-mannered and shaking their heads, and I know you were taking your notes on your phone. So are there any questions that you have for our panelists, anyone specific, or just for the board? Already 3, I love it. Please. What was your name?
Maria? Sure. My question was, what would you say would be a good, what are the better online platforms? Sorry, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. What are the best online platforms that you can use for hosting some of the content of your portfolio if you're, say, going to post it on LinkedIn? Because it could be a bit tough, say, like, instead of just putting a bunch of files out, like, say you wanted to kind of, like, post it somewhere and then put a link to the post. What would you say would be among the ones you'd be looking for? It's all for all of them.
So I would say the ones that I've seen, get your own website. Purchase your own domain and make it your name. I've seen that many times. If that's not the direction you want to go, Wix is great, Canva. There's a plethora. Just doing your research and just, a quick Google search on where do I want to host all of my resumes, my portfolios, job, everything, all your details. And Google will take care of all those details. And what's awesome is these type of platforms will also help you create a website. So you don't have to overthink it. If you don't have any coding experience, that's okay. It really boils down to building a portfolio, linking that to your LinkedIn, so at least we can see the full scope of your experiences that you have. So hopefully that helps. If you want to have more detailed discussion about that, more than happy to walk you through with that, okay?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Can I get one more maybe to that response? Does anybody else have any other sentiments on that?
I'll just reinforce everything my colleague just said. It's perfect. You need to just choose your platform in terms of where you're going to store, depending on what type of work it is, right? There's different platforms available, and once you do decide and choose what that will be, linking it to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is constantly updating their functionalities and features. There's so many different ways of showcasing it in different sections where you're linking the portfolio. You can talk about it in the About You section to emphasize it. You can mention it in different areas so that it comes up in searches and whatnot, because you do want that to be kind of front and center. So there's really a good way of positioning it. LinkedIn is really for positioning, but linking all the content, I do agree it should be on a different platform.
Fantastic. Can I get one more question? Thank you so much for it. Sam. We're going to go to Sam now.
Hi. So my question is for Graham specifically, but anyone as well. I looked at your company website and I just noticed that you're doing a lot of AI adoption or working with companies on that. But I noticed that you mention a lot like the concept of human intelligence, and that even if a company adopts, that they need people to kind of make it work. And I'm just wondering how that applies to when you're looking at early talent.
Yeah, we're right now doing a lot of work helping organizations to take the early steps towards AI. And there's such huge interest right now in what can the technology do and how can it change our business. And we're helping them to take that critical pause to really understand, okay, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? Let's clearly define what success looks like. And that requires you to ask a lot of really deep questions around the business, where it is, where it's going. It requires an honest look at your data. Most companies that are interested in pursuing AI projects get stalled because their data is spread across numerous platforms, redundant data, unclean data, all of those things. And then, so to answer your question around, as you've noticed, our company positions itself as human-centric. We're not an algorithm, we're not a marketplace. We're 7 people that get involved, answer our phones, and work with different business leaders. How does that apply to early talent? I think you're at such an advantage. You've been using AI platforms, hopefully not too heavily in your academics. I think there may be some profs in the room here. But I imagine many of you are playing with AI and doing some really creative things with the different platforms that are coming out. And it seems like every week there's something new to learn and to be exposed to. But as early talent, so you have that capability. You also have the capability of coming into organizations and being a fresh thinker, a new perspective. When we're doing these different projects, we oftentimes reach out to colleges and universities and oftentimes bring in interns and co-op students to look objectively at the scenario. What's going to work for the customer? How do we really make a difference in the way we position ourselves? I apologize, that's my business partner calling. So I think you're at a really great place right now in terms of this AI revolution, in that you're familiar with the tech, but you're also coming at it with a very fresh perspective.
So I have a question on behalf of our students, actually, because I know David and Raymond, and you also now talked about AI, So these days, like, AI is so prevalent. So what's your perspective? Like, is that like when they send you a resume, like what are I know different organizations, they have different scope, like application tracking system, and sometimes it's posted your resume is going to be scanned through AI. So that's what I want to know, so that students should be aware of these things as well. Thank you.
Yeah, you want to know, it goes back to knowing that the role that you're applying for and be able to fill the void that the employer needs. Like for myself, as an operator, for supervisors or managers within logistics, AI, not a huge thing for me. Right? And to be honest, if I get an AI-generated resume for a people-focused job, I think you've missed the mark, right? So, again, generational differences in how you use it. I think Graham really touched on it. It's what are you using and how are you applying that? There's no, I mean, I've dabbled in AI as well. How do I word this better speaking to a client? How do I word this better, speaking to at another engagement? How do I, to use that as to provide another option, but to replace human interaction just with AI and have that do your job, my opinion, dangerous. Like you're relying on that too much, So as I've said, no matter how much automation and how much AI we have, there is still people and processes that need to make that work. And regardless of what kind of profession or where you're looking to go into, let's not forget that, right?
Well, thank you so much. I got one more question over here.
Hi, panelist. Just wanted to ask, just right now you shared the people and process. So we heard a lot of your experiences about individual, how we need to do interview. But what do you want to share the roadblocks that we face when we work as a team? And what skill sets that you guys look when we want to achieve the similar objective of an organization? So how much important that skill set teamwork is, and what is your experience of the roadblocks that you faced in a team as well? Thank you.
Sorry, so if I understand your question, how do I interpret your experience with teamwork and how you overcome challenges? Is that accurate?
How did you faced roadblocks in your team when you were working, or if you have any experience, and what skill sets, what solution did we have to
Got
find
it.
a team? Thank you so much.
So a lot of it just comes down to what we were talking about, how to communicate with each other, how to have teamwork. Like, what does teamwork mean, right? It's you be able to listen as well as speak. You know, you've got people that are leaders, that are truly outspoken, that are comfortable speaking in front of a crowd, but I can see around here there's people that aren't, and that's okay. You know, one of the business units I'm looking after right now, we're actually hiring for a supervisor and just going out to put out an offer. And it's a team of 7 individuals. And we were looking as a group, as a management group, like, wow, these 7 individuals couldn't be any more different from each other. But they find a way to work together. And is it easy? No, sometimes there's challenges. Sometimes there's that competitiveness, but that takes leadership and experience for us to say, okay, let's get them. What's the priority here? What's the commonality? What's the goal? So for you, like, in answering your question, what's the critical thinking, right? How do you prioritize? If it's always me first, I have to be heard, I'm important, cautious with that. There's an element that you can do. There's a time and a place for that. If you're the wallflower that nobody really wants my opinion and I just focus on a little things, you're missing out on opportunity. So it's back to what we talked about, saying yes, it's doing those experiences, it's making those mistakes. You know, just kind of be very selective in where you're making those mistakes. You don't want to be gambling all on one and you know, sacrificing a whole bunch of work that you've put in just to make sure that you're the candidate. You know, so if I can try to articulate that a little bit better, good communication, being able to actively listen. I think that's an underestimated skill set these days. Everybody's prone to talking and who's talking the most and who has the most followers and who has this. Who's listening? That's where your money is. That's where you're, as a people leader, that's what you have to become more of. My team has a challenge. It's not about me having the solution. I'm building that team for us to have that solution. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. And really what I want is my team to come up with something. And I'll tell you, week on week, it's, wow, I never even thought of that. You know, what a great, what is it? Tell me more about that, or tell the team more about that, or what steps can you take to implement that? Yeah, don't underestimate those. Those are, and I'll say it again, you don't get that from AI, right? You get that from experience. You get that from speaking to your colleagues that are here. You get that to have an opportunity to speak to us here and to be able to build that. Did that answer your question? Cool.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions. One over here.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Abu, and my question is for Raymond, Director of Loblaws. In the next couple of years, we are aware Loblaws has an investment that they are making into the economy. For instance, this year, they are talking about 2.4 billion Canadian dollars. And here in Ontario alone, we are expecting over 3,600 jobs to be created. Please, can you give us a piece of advice for some of us who will be going out there pretty soon from the supply chain and in other sectors? How do we, and we'd love to grab such opportunities, how do we go about it so that we can at least have first-hand opportunity? If you can share any unique advice with us since you're the director. Thank you.
Yeah, I could talk on that for a long time, so Dave can just punch me in the shoulder here if I go on too long. Going back to my own history where I mentioned my boss used to work for me and now he is the Vice President of Canada, one opportunity that you have with our business is this is the hub of Loblaws, being in the Greater Toronto GTA with the amount of, whether it be retail, whether it be supply chain, head office alone has 3,000 people. It's about being open. So I probably could have moved to Toronto 25 years ago. I have 2 young kids at the time. I was not open to moving. My kids are gone now. One's in Vancouver, one's in Moncton, and things are different for me. So I took the opportunity to move here, and I've certainly, in the past 2 years that I've moved here, the opportunity is endless. So if you just go on the website on Loblaw and you punch in jobs, you will see hundreds of jobs. I would recommend going through that as your first step. Similar to what my colleagues talked about, have your portfolios up to date, right? So that when you are applying, when you are sharing the information, it is about you and current, because we have a lot on there that people have not updated in months, years, and they'll get passed by. So be honest about yourself. You know, it's endless opportunity. There's roles in our business that I didn't even know existed, that still don't know that exists. So I think just getting your portfolio right, even if that means that you hire somebody to assist you with your resume, or as these lovely ladies talked about, a website attached to it, etc. The more, because we're continually hiring, doesn't matter what it is. And just I want to go back to one thing with this company is, yes, we are doing a lot of things. The building I run is 90% automation. But automation and AI only gets you so far. You know, we all know in the media, social media, not everything is great. But I didn't stay with this company for 37 years just because it hasn't been fun. It has been fun. And what's kept me for 37 years is the people. And you know, you may start out at the bottom, which is where I did. I picked orders. I planned on doing it for the summer. I didn't go back to college because I enjoyed it, and it's worked out fantastic. So it's keep your options open, know the vision, know where you want to go, and get your name out there. We're always hiring. We're always looking for good people. And I'm going to talk to you because you're giving up $10 million. I want you on my team. So I hope I answered your question. And I would recommend my partner back here, Lisa, is our HR business partner. I would recommend have a personal conversation with her, and she can give you more details as I'm representing the business, but she's really the brains. So, okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raymond. Thank you so much to all of our panelists once again. We're going to have some time afterwards for individuals to have one-on-one conversation with our panelists. Can we get a round of applause for our panelists one last time? Fantastic job. At this moment in time, I'm going to invite Karuna back up here to close us off, and she has a couple of comments as well.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you all the employer panelists. Really, it was an amazing conversation, and thank you to all of you. And now you can reach out to your employers, okay?